And I just want to say, it stopped broadcasting.
It is broadcasting.
It says stop broadcasting.
That's the button to make it stop.
Just so you guys know, it's really important that you remember, Nazis are bad.
It's true. If you remember that, well, I can't say you'll get a point on the AP test, but it can't hurt to know that, because quite frankly. All right, so.
And the Divine Right of Kings is outdated.
Divine Right of Kings is outdated. Okay, well, that also works. Okay, you do know stuff. So right now I have 0 viewers joining me, although Peter is in the room. And I am going to talk about stuff.
I can't join because school Wi-Fi says like inappropriate material.
Says you are there. Says I am here. Your story doesn't add up, Peter. You're saying 1 + 1, but it don't equal 1. It equals 2. All right. So we got the live chat. We got the bling text happening. We got all kinds of fun. Let's hide that little guy so we get even more screen. Look at that. How fun is that? Like 6th review, and I finally figured out how to make the thing a little bigger. Anyway, the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution starts in England. And the Industrial Revolution in general is a topic where they're going to ask about it almost certainly. But how they ask about it is a different story. Like, I don't think you're going to get direct questions about it, but it really lends itself to giving you maybe a graph or a political cartoon or charts, things that make you kind of go like, oh, okay, that's right. And it activates prior information. So that can help you with that. Anyway, causes of the Industrial Revolution is the only thing that really could appear as an essay question, in my opinion, without the use of an outside thing. And the Industrial Revolution starts in England. Why? Because of a number of reasons. For one, the Agricultural Revolution. The Agricultural Revolution, which, as we know, is when they start applying scientific methods to agriculture with the intent of making people get more food on the same amount of land. Now, there are a number of ways this happens. They adopted a lot of Dutch farming techniques in England, and they start rotating their crops, and they begin using new, yes, hi, J-Mart. They begin using new things in the fields that actually replenish the nitrogen, such as turnips. And all of these things combine to make a larger output of agriculture. And you say, well, what's the big deal? I don't care. I don't want agriculture right now. But you do want agriculture, because agriculture, by having so much extra, it cuts down on famine. It allows them to have food shipped to them in a different part of the country. First in England, of course, but you'll see this throughout Europe. You'll see fewer famines. And it also leads to surplus. Surplus is a fancy economic word for they had extra. And because they had extra, they are now able to sell it. And when you're able to sell it, you can make profit. And when you can make profit, you can buy more lands, you can invest more into your land, and so on and so forth. The English are kind of boosted with that, with the whole the strong economy that's really created by this thing, by also having the Enclosure Acts, wherein they help those large landowners by, it says unable to connect to server, and you just wrote unable to connect to server. You can't do that because you're in.
What it says right here.
Okay, I'm doing this. So thousands of people are watching right now.
No, one.
Okay, probably 2 actually, but still. Anyway, the Enclosure Acts caused them to tap to retry, it says. There you are. Now it works perfectly.
Nope.
There you are. Now it works perfectly. Well, you can just listen to me because you're in the same room. Anyway, so the Enclosure Acts allow them to use less land to actually grow more crops. And what they do is they take the land away from the poor. Now, legally, you can't do that. But what they can do is they can say, hey, guys, you must build fences. You must enclose your land. No more common lands. And a lot of the poor people are like, but we can't afford doing that. And the large landowners are like, oh, it's so bad for you that they made that law. Never mind the fact these guys were often in a position to actually make the laws. So the Industrial Revolution kind of kicks off with a little bit of shady business because these Enclosure Acts allow the large landowners to go from profitable to super profitable, creates a great economy, and also they lead to people having no jobs, so they're forced to look elsewhere. Now, one thing people were doing for extra money was a thing called the cottage industry, and this actually helped the English economy as well prior to that. But this also caused trouble because the cottage industry is when people were working in their home in order to produce a lot of stuff. So you'd have someone bring them textiles. No, actually, I'm sorry, the raw materials like wool or cotton. And the people in that place were supposed to weave it into thread. Then they were supposed to take that cloth and weave it into fabric, spin it into thread and weave it into fabric. And then they were supposed to give it back and sell it back to the entrepreneur that had given him the raw materials in the first place. And in return for this, they received money. Well, the Industrial Revolution takes that idea of, hey, let's have one thing under one roof where we can have all of these things, and we can turn out all kinds of textiles. And textiles, of course, is just a fancy word for blankets, clothes, anything you make with fabric. The English government does a couple of things that are helpful. They establish a central bank, which is another Dutch idea. And again, we have in England at this time, King William and Queen Mary. And they are, well, he at least is Dutch. So it's not really that crazy that he thinks like that's a good idea, because it allows people to get credit. It allows people to move money around very nicely. It's a good thing for the economy. Also, they begin to adopt what is called a laissez-faire policy. And the laissez-faire policy is the idea that the government should stay out of business. In other words, the government should just, let businesses do what they're going to do. Business is going to business, and that's what they're going to do. I put this in here. I found it on the line, and I just wanted to kind of discuss it real briefly. This kind of just shows like what it takes to make a textile. Now, obviously, this is a more modern version, but you have your cotton or your wool. Cotton becomes the biggest thing that the English are using in order to create clothes and whatnot. The touch, the feel of cotton, it's the fabric of our lives. And they would take that cotton and spin it into yarn or thread. And this is not an easy thing to do, but they did. And then they have to take that thread or yarn and make it into a fabric. They have to weave it, in other words. After that, you might dye it. You probably didn't do a lot of lab tests or cutting or this other stuff back in the 18th century, but you definitely then had to ship it. So the cottage industry was a good idea. It was helpful at the beginning, but it didn't end up being something that was going to last, because once they start inventing things it's going to be a game changer. All right. And who invents this? Well, what about this fella, James Hargreaves? James Hargreaves invents the spinning jenny. And the spinning jenny,
Why is that called a spinning jenny?
oh, he named it after his daughter, Peter. I don't know why he named his daughter Spinning. Pause for laughter. Anyway, thanks for setting me up on that joke. The spinning jenny had 8 spindles. So you could take your spinning jenny and you could start spinning at 8 times the speed of a normal human. That's pretty good. Also, you're only limited by yourself because the spinning jenny is a machine and it doesn't get tired. So I stop, Bob starts, my brother Bob starts using the spinning jenny to spin threads. And we're spinning 8 times the amount that one person could have done previously. It makes it a lot faster, but it's not enough. You still are powered by a person moving their feet in order to make the thing move. If only there was a way to have an external power source. And along comes Richard Arkwright, and sure enough, he uses water. And the water frame had 96 spindles. Oh, what's that, James Hargreaves? Well, I'm grieving you right now because you only have 8 spindles, and Fat George Washington here has 96. There's a lot of guys in history that look like Fat George Washingtons. Have you ever noticed that? Anyway, so Richard Arkwright creates the water frame. And in order to power it, he uses an external source. You want to guess what it is? That's right. Don't actually type that, because if you have to type, like, I think it's water. Yeah, of course it's water. But not just a water, it's actually the water wheel. And you've seen these in like movies and stuff. It's like a big wheel that catches water that's running and slows down the river a little bit, but they use that water in order to make the machines move. Don't make me block you again, Peter. Along comes Samuel Crompton, and where you from, fool? Crompton. And Samuel Crompton, who also names his daughter Mule. I'm sorry, I messed up my own joke. Let me try that again. And then along comes Samuel Crompton, who also names his invention after his daughter. See, mule. Actually, a mule is a combination between a donkey and a horse. It's when a donkey and a horse fall in love and love each other very much, and it creates a mule. He says, I'm combining the spinning jenny. Please don't play with the dog. Can you just leave the dog there? I'm going to combine the spinning jenny along with water power, the water frame, and then I'm going to make it super powered, fragilistic, expialidocious. And his technology now allows 1,320 spindles at a time. It is exceptional. The problem here now is we have a bottleneck. A bottleneck is when things slow down. Think of like when you're drinking a bottle, a water bottle or something, and you try to pour it out. The water doesn't come out all at once. The water only comes out a little bit at a time because of the neck of the bottle, the bottleneck. So now we are spinning thread like nobody's business. But weaving is still pretty much done by hand or using a loom, which is very slow. If only there was a new invention that could make that better. So we'll get there, but eventually it's going to be called the power loom. So these early factories are oftentimes in the country because they need access to running water and to be able to control the direction of the river. The only people that really are there in the country are people who, are either agricultural people who actually already have jobs or people who don't have interest in working, because a lot of these people are leaving after this Enclosure Act, they're leaving to go to the cities. So early factories often used a lot of poorhouse labor, which is a nice way of saying orphans. They used child orphans to run their factories, often ones that were from foundling homes. The church would often make a deal with the factory. The church runs these foundling homes, which again are kind of like orphanages. And they say, hey, we'll take care of the kid, we'll feed them and all that. But in return, we're going to have to pay for that somehow. And the factory says, I have good news. We can help you by putting the kids to work. And then we'll give you money. We'll give you money instead of paying the children. So everybody's happy except for the children. And it sucks for them. It's awful for them. But nobody's really concerned about them in this particular situation because for the most part in the 18th century, children were thought of as kind of nuisances. They weren't really prized. They were more just kind of around. But when James Watt comes along, he hears about this thing called a steam engine that was invented by Thomas Newcomen, and I'll give him a very German pronunciation there. And Newcomen and Savory. I think it's James Savory. I'm not sure about that. Anyway, so James Watt says, hey guys, I got a bomb new idea. I am going to make your steam engine better. And everybody's like, what are you talking about, James Watt? The steam engine is great. He's like, nah, I can make it even better. And he uses science to make it better. Now, I showed a movie in class where this guy, where they discuss what he's doing with the hidden heat and it's being lost within the steam engine and how Watt manages to improve. For this test, we don't care. What you should know is that James Watt didn't invent the steam engine. He improves the steam engine. And after that, everything is freed up because you're no longer dependent on rivers. Now, you can have your factories anywhere you want them, including the cities where you have a huge labor pool of people who are unemployed who want jobs. Perfect. So James Watt doesn't sell his steam engine. He rents it to people in exchange for a percentage of their profits, which is extraordinarily clever because he ends up a very wealthy man because these are now used all over factories, and guys like Edmund Cartwright and the power loom make things go crazy. You have all kinds of weaving going on. The factories now can, with the frames, I always get the words mixed up. They can spin threads. That's what those do. And the power loom, the loom, weaves those threads together. And they are making all kinds of textiles. England becomes an early leader in this agricultural revolution. Why? Because France is sort of distracted, as is the rest of the continent. What's going on over there? No, not canals. Canals we're also too watching. Thank you, Peter. You're making my ego go crazy. It's that the Napoleonic era is going. So because of the Napoleonic era, it allows people to really get cray-cray as far as that whole thing goes with the war. They can't focus on economic stuff because they're busy fighting Napoleon, and then they're busy being ruled by Napoleon, and then they're busy rebelling against Napoleon again because he just invaded Russia in 1812, and they see weakness, so they're trying to jump on that. So the English get a huge head start. The English did not invent canals. Canals had been around for a long time. But the English use canals. They have people build canals in their country, and they used that early on to ship things. That's the main way things are shipped, because it's a lot faster than putting things on the back of a horse, or obviously carrying it yourself. You can carry hundreds of times what you could on a horse, and you can do it pretty relatively fast. But canals only last as long as it takes them to invent something better. And of course, what's the better thing? Anybody know? What replaces the canals as a transportation method? Anybody at all? Anybody? Waiting for them to come up with things. By the way, this is a series of locks. This really impresses me that they can get a boat to go up a hill. That is good science. Good science, science men. Railroads, nice going, J-Mart. Watch this. Sahak's going to say it's railroad. Steam engine ferry. Well, I mean, they did make steam engine ferries, but the railroad is the one that really improves the whole system, because a ferry is limited by the space on board. A railroad, it's limited by the number of cars you put on it, and you can put a lot of cars on a railroad. Whoa, what? And the first one is invented by George Stephenson, and it's called the rocket, because it rockets along at speeds near, but not quite, 30 miles per hour. I said the word per wrong. And that's it right there. Ain't it a beaut? Nice. So after the French Revolution and the Napoleonic era, but I'm kind of folding those two things together, the European continent starts to catch up. The ones that are the biggest industrializes. You always say it's lag, Sahak. Always. I never want to play Call of Duty with you.
It is lag. I can't even connect over here. Is it way better off than me? Even though I'm all live on screen.
All right, now I got some pictures here, because again, I think the way to go with you guys is not only the data, the facts, but also I think that pictures could be a big element. Like, you could see a short answer that has like a picture of this.
Yeah, short answer.
And it could be a polluted city. Because what's one of the negative effects of the Industrial Revolution? Pollution everywhere. That's right. So it creates a darkened, nasty-looking city. People have shorter life expectancies because they're inhaling all kinds of pollution. If you want to know what it looked like, quite frankly, look at some of those kind of menacing pictures of Beijing in China and how bad the pollution is there. Because although it's gotten better, frankly, in the last couple of years, but that was the situation in 19th, or I guess late 18th, early 19th century Europe, before they started chilling out a little bit in the more industrial districts like Manchester and places like that. Where the people live? Well, they had housing usually right next to the factory, because people needed a place to live. The factory owners wanted to guarantee that the workers would be close enough that they wouldn't have to have a delay. So they make housing. And then, of course, they charge them for rent and take it out of their pay. It's really a win-win for the factory. Now, the factory workers had to live in these, frankly, kind of ugly, stacked up tenement type things. It was not a good place to live. What about child labor? Did that stop once they moved to the cities? No, they liked doing that. They had a tiered system. Men earned the most, and then women earned less than men, and children earned even less than women. And during a sexist time period like this, you got to imagine that the factory workers were like, well, we could hire an adult man, or we could hire 2 kids and get twice the number of things done. What? Now, obviously, there's some jobs children could not do, but safety was not a concern. As you look at these pictures, Homie is not wearing shoes in this picture at all. He's straight up barefoot working a frame. That ain't good. That ain't good at all. Oh, little girl, that's so sad. You have no shoes on and you're standing there. You look like a ghost or something. Hey, shine my shoe, kid. What? Hey, you're a newspaper boy. That's great, newspaper boy. Hey, someone just walked in. Hi, how can I help you? I don't have my glasses on. I'm doing a live review right now, my friend.
Dramatic.
Oh, what's up, Haru? It's good to see. If I wasn't broadcasting to thousands of people on the internet right now, do you want to come over and say hi? All right. Yeah. Mr. Allen is down the thing, but Mr. Allen, don't stay this late because it's after 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Oh,
School,
roasted.
time.
Anyway, children were treated really terribly, and the conditions are especially awful because not only did they not have any kind of protections for obvious footwear safety, unlike Bullard High School, we worry about what kind of shoes you wear.
Too much.
But I didn't say that, Mr. Castillo. That was Peter. And I think it's great that we don't let children wear backs to their shoes, or we require it. I mean, that's good. Look at these kids without backs to their shoes. They're disgusting.
They don't have shoes.
Shh. Anyway, you got these. You got all kinds of protections in the nowadays, but back then, kid gets injured, and maybe they lose an arm because they're tired and they're being careless because they had to work long hours, 14 to 16-hour days. Then they end up hurting themselves. The people can just fire them. There's no workers' comp. There's no disability. The government's not going to take care of you. The factory's not going to take care of you. You're just an asset, and now you're no longer valuable. So they dump you like trash. It ain't no good at all. As far as for the child safety, they would beat the children, or to keep them awake, they would whip them. It was awful, awful stuff. What about coal mines? They definitely didn't have children in the coal mines. Oh, Courtney. Hi, cat. Why did you say rip when she's talking about her cat, Sahak? That's savage. I don't like that at all. Anyway, you have this. You have this. It's children in the coal mine. This is an illustration, obviously. This is real children. And that kid is straight up pulling a mine cart. Now, something they don't show here is that in the mines, it was very hot. So sometimes people would disrobe, and you had women and men working in sweaty conditions, in half-removed clothing. It was a bad recipe for immorality. That's what it was. Down here, you've got kids. It's just showing young kids. Looks like they've got coal dust on them. A lot of kids would die from things like black lung. Oh, the cat knows I like it. There, that was for your cat, not you. Anyway, children were treated really badly in coal mines. What about later? All right, this is GDP per capita. And if you ever encounter a chart like this, gross domestic product per person. So in 1830, an average British person is making more stuff, is living a better life than most others. That only gets better. And GDP is usually used to track how economically successful a country is. For example, the United States has a very good GDP compared to, like, what's the name of a country, Peter?
Sealand.
Sealand.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got Britain here, but you see that as the 19th century progresses, you start getting some catch up. Germany here, France, those guys are improving quickly, and they're building a lot of rail lines and all that. Italy is like, oh, we's here. What's going on? Austria, a little bit more than Italy, and then poor sad little Russia just chugging along.
Italy is straight.
By the way, what'd you say?
Like straight lines.
It is.
Bends a little bit.
Yeah, it is kind of a straight line there. The Russians are behind. If you notice, what happens here is that Alexander II is okay. Wow, shots fired! You're gonna make you're making Peter angry. He loves Russia. So the the Russian Tsar Alexander II tries to modernize Russia after the Crimean War. And whilst doing so, he does improve Russian industrialization with the help of his minister, Sergei Witta. I'm going to spell his name just so we're all on the same page there. Well, they were losing. I know. Hey, Sahak, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying Peter now is wandering around the room angrily.
I feel like your son walk around the background.
Yeah, well, this is something my kid does, except that he usually just goes off and watches TV. Yeah, Peter is here because his computer's not working. It just keeps saying that there's no picture. So
appropriate material for school Wi-Fi.
What is?
Your video
It's not.
won't. That's what it seems like. Cause like I can get this at home. It's all free Wi-Fi, but here it's all restricted.
Well, sorry about that. All right, so all of this in industrialization, plus a lot of other things, lead to a big population explosion. And this is of course, they call it the population explosion. Why? For one, the bubonic plague is mostly done and gone by the mid-18th century. It's still around even today, but it's not as effective and not as deadly as it once was. Part of that is because the black rat is driven out by the brown rat, and that causes all kinds of shift as far as what kind of rats are around, and the fleas, I guess, don't glom onto the brown rat as much or whatever. Anyway, you can see here, England, bam. What about the capital of England? Boom. This also leads to a thing we call urbanization, the movement of people from the rural area, the country, to, okay, 3 people. I know it's you, Courtney, and Sahak, and J-Mart. That's actually 4. So it's fake news. Anyway, you also see a corresponding decrease in population in agriculture, 65 to 25. Yeah. This leads to a movement of class and more class awareness. Why did you say no, Sahak? Just no.
Because I'm not watching. I'm live.
So the upper class is the...
See that?
He wrote 3, but Peter is right here. I can see him.
You're denying it.
I do not deny Peter.
Why are you denying that there are 3 watching?
Mm.
You can't count me as
Well, I say no to Peter. I say no to Peter, and I say no to Sahak. Anyway, and there's probably millions watching on delay. Now, the landowners and aristocrats are they're the upper class. Factory owners, merchants, people who are involved in the shipping industry, doctors, lawyers, managers, these tend to make up the upper middle class. And the upper middle class will be known by Marx as the bourgeoisie. So the bourgeoisie there are up here. And then the people who are in positions of authority, the leadership.
like teachers.
No, well, not really. They would be the lower middle class, although I suppose that a teacher back then probably would have been the lowered middle class because they are technically skilled workers. This is the lower middle class. And down here at the lower middle class, that's your workers,
Or working class.
and they are down at the bottom, poor working class. And they had all kinds of things they did for fun. They would go see animals battle and gamble on it. They would drink. Eventually, as the 19th century goes on, they begin to get more involved in going to see shows and sporting events. With
Fighting.
rooster fighting was definitely one of those animal events, yes. Some people feel like machines are causing too much trouble. They're destroying our way of life. They reject change. They reject technology. These are followers of course you do. The Aristocats is a great movie. Everybody wants to be a cat. Anyway, the people who are, you're making me miss my cat. I want to go home and see my cat. So anyway, maybe I won't go to my allergist. So these people attack the frames. Hello, sir. And they're following the mythical Ned Ludd. Ned Ludd was a man who lived in the Sherwood Forest. And the Sherwood Forest, of course, is where Robin Hood is. That should kind of be a hint to you that Ned Ludd is probably not a real man, but it still encourage Peter Hewley.
What are you? Annoying chicken.
He was talking about chickens. Anyway, so these are people destroy the frames. Obviously, this is illegal. This is not a long-term thing. Destroying factory products, that's a problematic thing to do. How did workers protect themselves? Well, here's a picture. Somebody tell me, what is going on in this picture? What are the workers doing? Peter, you have to write it down. I will not accept it.
What?
And also you're timed out, so you can't respond.
What?
So what are these people doing? What are these people?
Protesting the system.
Yes. And what is it called when workers band together to protest? Maybe they refuse to work. Yes, they strike. What?
Labor union.
Yeah, this is a labor union.
Yeah, protesting against withdrawal for not allowing me to talk, have my voice be heard.
Now, capitalism, especially with laissez-faire capitalism, has less government control. But a lot of workers are drawn to new ideas that are a bit more controversial. And these are socialism and communism. And of course, who's this handsome boy right here? Anybody know?
Mr. Oliver.
It is not Mr. Oliver. I'm pointing to the gentleman with the full beard. Who is?
Sigmund Freud.
It's not Sigmund Freud. Peter, I'm going to block you in real life. I'll give you a hint. He's right next to where it says communism. So that might be a clue as to who this man is that a lot of workers were drawn to because they felt like maybe the factories were taking advantage of them. Absolutely, Sahag. Karl Marx. And Karl Marx, along...
That's his wife because he has to go to an appointment. It's very dramatic over here. I'm just gonna commentate while he's off.
My wife wanted to know if I cleaned the toilet last night. So I just responded, of course. Anyway, so she said it in German. Obviously, I had to use the Google Translate app in order to figure it out what she said.
He has a witness.
So anyway, a lot of workers get more radical because they feel like they're being exploited. And the idea of having a worker's paradise is very, very appealing to them. So this is yeah. I'm almost done here, but British laws that are worth knowing, there's a couple that I think you should know. One of them is the Factory Act of 1833. That one says no one under 9 years old can work. You have to wait until you are 10, until you're, a mature young man to get a job. And then the 10 Hours Act limits the workday to 10 hours for women and children. And that's not good. It's offensive to lump women and children together. Now, Mr. Oliver, what is this? You got a picture, it's a white horse. Okay, I see a white horse over here. Doesn't really seem to be the focus of the painting. I thought we were talking about the Industrial Revolution. Well, the Industrial Revolution, we were looking at effects of it. And one of the effects of the Industrial Revolution, what was the hours for you? What does that mean, Courtney? I don't understand. What were the hours for men?
Yeah, how many hours did men?
Oh, they could work up to 18 hours. They weren't limited to that 10-hour thing. Anyway, paintings were rebelling as well, and painters and art in general always responds to current events. And this art movement, if you know it, go ahead and say it. If this art movement is a rebellion against the science and precision of the Industrial Revolution. So, what's it called? I'll give you a hint. You're looking at a good example of it in England. Constable is a famous painter of this nature. What kind of painter is he? Romanticism. You killed it. Constable is big on this. Look here. Do we have any kind of landscape that's sullied by the factories? No. Remember this? Remember this picture back in the day? Look at that. Romantics were disgusted by the way that factories had destroyed people's lives, made them work like machines. What happened to the days where you could kind of go along with the sun and just get up, do your work, tend your fields, etc. But now the Romantics are like, you know what? We'll paint this world. And this world will be a beautiful world of the countryside, the time that used to be. Well, we're going to look back to this wonderful time. Now, it wasn't all great. Romantics were also interested in showing kind of weird stuff, exotic, unusual things.
Inappropriate.
This is not inappropriate.
Not safe for school.
It is not that.
That's why I couldn't load your video with this Wi-Fi.
There's a sleeping, fully clothed woman, and there is a demon just sitting right there on her belly, and a creepy horse, and it's like, what the heck is going on here? And Romanticism could also be kind of unusual images here, capturing a different look at life. We've all had nightmares. And in folk tales, there are all kinds of ideas of why we have nightmares. Maybe you've been bewitched. Maybe there is a demon who is literally like sitting on you. Maybe you've woken up short of breath. Why did I have a nightmare? Why was I short of breath? Obviously, must have been a demon. Nowadays, science is like, well, it's due to the fact that you were probably experiencing a state of anxiety due to the dream, and that's why it caused you to be short of breath, and that's boring.
Or the food you eat, and that's why I don't eat.
Okay, and the demon is sitting on her and making her feel bad. It's not a realistic painting. This is romantic. And again, romantic is not always happy. Romantic can be like, things that threaten humans.
Love is dangerous.
Okay. So here we have Friedrich. This is one of my favorite paintings. You have this foppish fellow who is hiking up. He's got his walking stick, and he's standing above a sea of fog in the mountains. And there, why is he there? We don't know. The mystery of the unknown, the danger of the world, the mystery of the world. Science, boring. Nature, interesting. Nature, dangerous. He could fall off and he'd be dead. He doesn't have safety equipment on. I don't go hiking unless I'm wearing like several arm pads, knee pads. I look like somebody going roller derbying. I'm wearing a helmet. I'm all kinds of prepared. This guy, he's YOLO swag. In fact, if he knew what that meant, he probably would have said YOLO. This one we talked about in class. It's another, he doesn't want to fly, Sahak. He doesn't want to, look at him. He doesn't want to fly. He does not have wings. He would die. That doesn't make sense. Anyway, we looked at this one in class. This is another example of nature being a nasty thing as well as something that should be in high esteem. You've got monsters here, fishy monsters kind of eating things up. There's this thing over here. It's like a sea monster / shark. And they're devouring slaves that were thrown off of a ship in the real story. These slaves, it's actually a real event. They were taken off because they were sick, and the captain of the ship wanted to be able to claim them as losses at sea. This is a great source of shame. Yeah, the dead bodies. This is a great source of shame for the British. And shortly after this incident, it led to slavery illegal. Yeah, they would throw them over. Exactly. Anyway, this is Turner. Turner is a good name to know as well. I don't think they would ask you a question that's along the lines of, name 4 romantic painters, but they could have a painting and then they could have a name there and say like, okay, what kind of style is this art? And if it's mostly nature, 9.5 out of 10 times, it's probably romanticism. There's an announcement.
Anthony Baris, please go to your pickup spot. Anthony Baris, please go to your pickup spot.
All right, well, that's all I had. What kind of questions do you guys got for me? Any questions at all? For me? Yes, Peter's there too. Any questions for me? Anybody at all got a question for me?
Or Peter, 'cause I'm here too. I know stuff.
Okay, so yeah. Any questions whatsoever? Peter, go over there. Anybody? I want to make it clear in the future I'll be locking my door before we have these reviews. And this is why. Any questions about the Industrial Revolution or anything like that? What is the wealth gap created by? Well, that's interesting. Okay, so when you say wealth gap, do you mean, is your question, what can I ask as a question? Basically, people who had money were able to make more money. So it created a bigger gap between the rich and the poor. It wasn't like those nobles and those landowner types started off poor and then worked their way up. They didn't start from the bottom, now they're here. It was instead a situation where the rich got richer, whereas the poor stayed very poor. So that's the wealth gap. Is that what you're asking, or did you have a different question? I think I answered it. Any other questions other than what can we ask? Because I can't tell you what you don't know that you want to know. Anybody else? I know I got a bit of a lag, so I'll wait for a second. Yes. Oh, that was your question. Yes. Okay. Okay. So anybody else got a question? What should I learn? Well, I mean, you did pretty well on the practice test, so just keep up whatever you're doing. You want to know a general amount from 1450 up to the year 2000 or so. Any other questions at all? That was three strikes you removed. Did I do okay? I don't remember, Court and Enemy. You could look in Atlas for an answer for that question. That's a good question, though. Look in Atlas, see how you did, and tomorrow we're going to go over it.
You were the best. I saw it myself.
Any other questions? The high score was 41, which is not fantastic, but out of 55 on the test, that's actually that's trending good if you can be near 41. That's not an answer to your question. I'm just saying in general. Anybody else? Any other questions? Anybody at all? My hair always looks kind of flat at the end of the day. I need to have more volume. I'll talk to Dimitri about how to get more volume in my hair. Okay, any other questions?
You didn't answer mine.
Any other questions? Who was it? Well, that's not a very good question. Who was what?
Person talking that they cannot hear.
That was Peter who was talking. He's the only person in the room. I mean, I'm in the room, obviously, but other than me, Peter is in the room. And again, this is a one-time thing. I had a girl who was going to come take a test that she didn't show up, but Peter came by and he is guest starring today. All right, it looks like not a lot of people have questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to tweet me at Oliver Raps or email at charles.oliver@fresnounified.org. And either one of those, I respond relatively quickly. Again, tomorrow in class, we're going to be going over that last one. I don't want to share the name of the person because I don't know if they want everyone to know what they scored, because that's, maybe a little personal, Sahak, but
It wasn't me.
okay. Any other questions at all? No? Great. All right. I will see you guys tomorrow in class. I'm glad so many people joined us. We didn't have any out-of-state viewers today, so I guess it's kind of late dinner time for them. They do better on the weekends, I think, Wednesday afternoon. Well, okay. All right. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.